Good afternoon. This is Sergeant Sarah Ashton Cirillo with the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and sitting next to me is my guest host, Olександр Mусієнко, the founder and director of the Ukrainian NGO, the Center for Military and Legal Studies. This is our fourth show together of Ukraine Inside, the uncensored look at the week in military and domestic affairs for Ukraine's war for liberation and liberty. Olександр, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We are here at the Territorial Defense Forces Media Studios. However, Olександр is a civilian, and what that means is sometimes he's bringing propaganda in here that I don't necessarily like to deal with. But you were talking some nonsense earlier, something about the left bank of Kherson, and we were also planning to talk about Crimea today, Kupiansk.
Yeah.
And we will look into the international situation on the Polish border with Belarus and what is going on with Wagner, Belarus, Lithuania, and Poland. Olександr, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're live on Twitter. We're recording for your podcast because Ukraine Inside is not my show. I just happen to have been, told that I have to do this.
But that doesn't happen without you.
Well,
that's you are the main, that I really thank to you because it's important because it's of you. I didn't do this previously because I didn't meet you early. So now we can do this in a good company, I think, and our audience they enjoy to listen in our podcast and see us on the lives.
I hope they do, and I hope everyone retweets us, stays with us, because again, being that we are a live and uncensored show, we are able to discuss things that maybe others aren't. Well, at least this guy will, because he's one of the stars of the National Television Marathon, which is the 5 stations that came together and coalesced around this idea that we needed to have free speech, but we also needed to stay on message. So again, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. And what I need to say is that about thank you for for the star, yes, but about National Marathon, about National Ukrainian TV. You asked me previously, yes, about our national TV, about the situation in media. And I told you that I have a freedom of speech. I can speak freely on Ukrainian media, what I think. Of course, I have self-censor for me, because I understand sometimes that because of the situation of war, and even when I know sometimes from my own sources, I don't need to speak to everyone, I know this, I need to speak about this faster, because first of all, I'm thinking about what influence this will have on the situation on the front lines. I think what kind of this information will bring, what impact of this information will be for our audience, and probably I will do something bad, and that will be good for Russians, for example, because they will get some information from me.
Do you think the Russians are watching us right now, possibly?
Yes, and I can say to them, hello, Russian propagandist, you hate the truth, you need to watch...
Russia hates the truth. Yes, Russia hates the truth. You mentioned restraining yourself and talking about information.
Yeah.
Last week we discussed something very similar. We wanted to talk about where Russia may or may not have achieved some success.
Yeah.
Russia is claiming success in the area of Kupiansk, not in the city of Kupiansk, but in Kupiansk direction, as we say. What's really going on in Kharkiv Oblast and the parts of Luhansk that Russia is making claims to?
Yeah, Russians trying to have initiative there. They're trying to take initiative from our forces because, as everyone knows, we are continuing our counteroffensive operation on the southern part of Ukraine, going to deoccupy our territory. And what they're trying to do, they're trying to retake initiative to them, and they're trying to attack from northeastern part of Ukraine to the Kharkiv region, from Lugansk.
I just want to say, Kharkiv region,
yes.
Nothing to do with Kharkiv city, no matter what the propagandists want to say.
Yeah.
So if you look at the map of Kharkiv, and since we actually are live, I'm not putting up any maps right now, if you look at the map of Kharkiv Oblast, the border's quite long.
Yeah,
It starts almost to, obviously it touches Sumy, but it runs along almost all of Belgorod Oblast, but also touches parts of other oblasts in Russia. And then you also have the so-called Luhansk People's Republic touching on it, and you have Luhansk. So ultimately, there's a lot going on geographically in that little corner of the northeastern sector of this war.
Yeah, and what they're trying to do, and that's because of the nearest of their borders. That's, not so hard to move there, and not so hard for them to attack from there, because Russian is close to. So, and they are trying to attack our forces in the Kharkiv region. That's because they're trying to move our forwards, our reserves from southern part, from our directions of counteroffensive to northeastern part. And that's why they're thinking that they could stop our counteroffensive operation in the southern, just to remove our forces. And that's why they continue attacks there. I think that, and I presume that the pressure will be highest and harder more. Because why? Because Russians move new troops from Russia there, and they will continue their attacks. They lost a lot of people there already, a lot of people, but they continue to move, and they continue to move into Lugansk Oblast to attack Kupiansk. So I think that they will try to do this, and I think that we will have, very hard battlefield there right now.
We report every day that there is intense fighting in the Kupiansk direction.
Yeah.
We talk about even a swapping of positions. Ultimately, Russia is taking tremendous losses. We're live, so come on in. No, we're live, come on in. In fact, I want to, that's one of our sergeants, Sergeant Ivan.
Sergeant Ivan, yes, he can move.
I wish he could come in here and actually sit
move,
down.
And we can, yes, and we can speak.
Because you may have a show with him coming up soon, but in Ukrainian.
Yeah, I think so. That we will have a show about analytics, about on the battlefield, about current issue, about Ukrainian domestic issues, about the international, about everything.
Moving back to Kupiansk.
Yeah. And about Kupiansk, I'm sorry.
Well, no, sure, but I wished Sergeant Ivan would have come in. But moving back to Kupiansk, I report every day about the intensity of the battles. This is our official statement. It comes from Deputy Defense Minister Maller just yesterday morning, talking about the swapping of positions. Russia is continuously mobilizing. Some new reports came out, some new documents came out that Russia is preparing for wider martial law.
Yeah.
You've seen this, I think, as well.
Yeah.
How long can they continue to just send troops to the meat grinder?
Yeah, what they did previously, they tried to use people from the jails. They using prisoners, and now they do not have enough prisoners, so they will continue mobilization in the different Russian cities, and they continue right now, because even during this summer they continue their conscripts and mobilization in Russia. They hide this process, because I think that Putin and Kremlin, they're afraid that it will have not very good support around the country and from the people, and they're afraid because they will have self-called oh my God, I'm sorry, self-called I will tell you.
You know what? I'm gonna jump in here, because ultimately it doesn't matter what Russia calls it. It's a lie. Whatever word
elections.
So-called elections.
I forgot this.
Then it is a lie. It is a lie, because ultimately Russia would have so-called elections.
Yes, they will have, and they're afraid that Putin's rating will be lowest. So they're afraid, and they will try to hide the process of mobilization.
I'm
but
disappointed.
They will continue this.
So they're going to continue mobilization, but let's talk about Russia for a moment. I'm disappointed. Do you know what I'm disappointed in? That Putin doesn't have the courage to get elected with 95% of the vote. How come the vote totals always show 65, maybe high 70s, but he doesn't have the courage to say, you know what, I'm a dictator. I'm getting 95% of the vote. Just do it, Vlad. Just do it.
Peskov, his spokesperson, Kremlin spokesperson.
He's referencing Dmitry Peskov.
Yeah, Dmitry Peskov,
Yes.
Russian spokesperson from the Kremlin. He told in the interview for New York Times, he told that Russian elections is just a bureaucracy. Nothing more.
That's it. Peskov said
Yes,
it. And Peskov can't speak
bureaucracy.
without it
Yeah.
being coming directly from Putin. He's not
Yeah.
allowed to. Peskov's like a wind-up toy that you wind him up, and whatever diarrhea comes out of his mouth, you know is directly coming from Vlad Putin.
Yeah, and just a bureaucracy.
Just bureaucracy. That's
Nothing
it.
more.
Not the people's
it doesn't-
choice, not free will.
It not depends from people's will.
Just doing paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork, just bureaucracy. You need to write this, you need to write this, you need to write this. It's results. But what they do, you know that they are trying to provide sometimes, and they are trying to see Russian moods in the people, what people thinking, and their moods, they're important for them. And you know that's. Always, you know, for every dictator, that's the issue, what people think about me. Yes, you know, that what people think. Sometimes, you know, that the leaders of the Ottoman Empire in history, sultans, they moved in Istanbul to the market, to the central market, and people didn't recognize Sultan, and they saw that, look, that's just a rich person. He came here just to buy something. And he just tried to ask, what's the level of corruption? What we need to fix? What do you think about taxes and so on? Putin doesn't do this, and we can expect it that he will do this. Can't expect
So
it.
Putin is more removed from the Russian people than sultans from the Ottoman Empire.
Yes, that's correct. Because that's, you know, that's like somewhere in the theater or in the cinema. That's all the picture for Putin. And you know, there are actors everywhere and someone director of this process, some of the operators, scenario and so on. And you know, some people staying and there with the flags. Oh my God!
Are they using the same actors?
God.
We see this all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
They
yeah.
are. They're
using
using
the same actors.
The same
Yes,
actors.
the
Yes.
same actors, and they're staying like, and there with the flags. Oh, Putin coming and Putin. Yes.
Let's move to. So we were discussing Kupiansk. We're discussing Putin. We're laughing over the fact that Putin is a coward who stays in a bunker. And one of the things that almost got him out of one of the bunkers and moved to another was the mutiny by Wagner. So-called mutiny because, as we understand it to be, it was just stage acting. It was just stage acting. There was no mutiny. It was to deal with internal Russian politics. That's why Wagner and Prigozhin are still running around. Now they're causing trouble in Belarus. As I said, Minsk is no Moscow. You've really taken a step down. However, it's creating problems for our partners, specifically Poland and Lithuania. Talk to us about Lukashenko, about Prigozhin, and about what our partners in Lithuania and in Poland are having to face right now.
I think that that's very important to speak about this, especially for not only because of Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, but because of the security and defense of all NATO members. Because that's very important. Why? Look, Shoigu, Minister of Defense, he told yesterday that Russian forces will move to their western countries because Polish forces and Polish army prepare for something. Yes, they move their forces and so on. And of course, they lost a lot of soldiers here in Ukraine, and we lost more, I think. But the threat from Russia we cannot underestimate, because what's happened right now? Look, they will use Wagner's group, terrorists from Wagner's. How? They can use them for sabotage or terrorist attack on Polish territory. How? They will move with their own black flags, like pirates. Yes, like corsairs, like pirates. And they will move, they will attack they will sabotage, they will attack some infrastructure objects or something else on the Polish territory, and then they will have, I think, probably they will have a conflict situation with the Polish army or with the Polish police, and they just will move to Belarus.
Jump back across the border.
Jump back. And what Poland will do in this situation? They just try to see the reaction from NATO, from Poland, how will be react on this, because they will move with the black flags like pirates, and they will move back to Belarus. And what Poland will do in this situation?
What should Poland do? You're an analyst. You're a legal analyst
yes.
and a military analyst. What should Poland do?
I think the point, first of all, I understand what Russians try to do. They want just to, they want to discussions and conversations in Europe, in NATO headquarters in Brussels, and so on. They will want just about qualification of this, because someone could insist that this is not Russian aggression, wasn't attack on the state. That was attack of terrorist group, Wagner group. So,
let's say,
yes.
One moment, I'm interrupting. Didn't the Kremlin just say last month that they were actually the ones that were in charge of Wagner?
Yeah, and but you know what? Someone, why Russians try to do this? Because they want to see NATO reaction, not only Polish reaction. Because you know that Poland is a member of NATO.
Yes.
And of course,
explain to us what Article 5 is.
Yes,
because we always see people say call Article 5.
That all members of NATO need to protect each one. Yes, of the, for example, British Army need to protect Polish territory, Polish borders, and Lithuania borders, and Estonia. German need to protect the same, and for example, Polish Army need to protect territory of Spain or Portugal, and so on. So that's why American soldiers on the territory of Poland right now.
Do you know where there's not American soldiers?
Huh?
Do you know where there's no American soldiers?
Where?
There's no soldiers of the United States Army in Ukraine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that very clear, because everybody wants to claim that there's soldiers here. No, but we do have the brave men and women of the United States military serving in Poland. So what happens then with?
And so what they're trying to do? They try to see the NATO reaction on this, because NATO it's 31 members. Yes, right now, because 31, because Sweden didn't finish the. So the procedure of membership, but I think they will do this, and now they need to say their reaction, their point of view, and Russians want to see what reaction will be, how NATO members will qualify, because it depends, because what they need to do in this case, because look, if the situation is terrorist attack, that's one point of view. Act of aggression of the state with the using of terrorist Wagner's group. The second, and how we need to react on this. That's different stages of threats. So in first point, aggression, that's the war, and in second point is just terrorists. So we need to do counter-terrorist operation, anti-terrorist operation, something like this. And in first point, if we look this is act of aggression. Polish army can use their weapon to attack Wagner's group, Wagner's bases on the Belarus territory. Yes, but in the second point, I'm not sure, because that's like anti-terrorist or counter-terrorist operation, and that's different points. And of course, Russians. Right now, they call this special military operation. But they can call this as they want.
Words literally, the Russian language matters. Russian words have no truth to them from the Russian Federation. Therefore, I agree with you that they can call the war whatever they want, and it's still the same thing. It's a war.
According to the international law, this is international conflict, international conflict between the two states, where there
That's
is,
war.
yes, that's the war, where there is one state aggressor, Russia, and the second state, that Ukraine, that protect and trying to defend with our Western partners ourselves. So that's why Russians trying to do. That's why they are trying to use Wagner's, and that's also because you know that they having success here in Ukraine, military success, and they try to, you know. And they want to want to. It's from the. I think that's from the Putin's logic, because he told in his interview, different interviews, that he had a hard childhood and so on in the former Leningrad. Now it's St. Petersburg, and he told how it was hard and so on and so on. And that's from his logic. And
Get over it, Vlad.
Like
you know
hooligan.
Vlad, get over it. We don't care that you had a hard childhood, because ultimately everyone suffered different things.
Yeah.
And if you want to start crying about it, go to a psychologist and stay the hell out of Ukraine.
Use the pillows.
Use a pillow. Do you want a napkin? Whatever. The violin. Wah, Vlad Putin.
Yeah. And that's why he's like hooligan. You know, he's like somewhere on the streets. He tries. You don't care about him. You can see this person. I don't care about you. What do you want from me? I don't care about you. I will go with my road and so on. But he wants to, and he will push you. He will punch you. Look, I'm here. Talk to me or doing something. That's why he tries to use different provocations against NATO, against Western, because now he is in isolation. Because
hiding,
now,
like a scared little child.
Yes, because now he is with a warrant and his arrest from the International Crime Court.
Yes.
But he wants to speak with. He wants to speak with the U.S. president. He wants to speak to UK Prime Minister, to the President of France, to the German Chancellor, and so on. And he thinks they don't want to speak. Oh, okay, I will punch them. I will beat them, and they will see. And they must to have negotiations with me then. So that's why he tries to use this.
Let's talk about the negotiations for a moment. There were lies that were reported, bad sourcing lies, whatever you want to call it, in the Western media, specifically Wall Street Journal, that President Zelensky and his negotiating team had agreed to enter negotiations with the enemy. However, the Ministry of Defense and President Zelensky's office both came out and said, this is not true. Why? I believe we both know the answer, many of the viewers do, but explain why Russia is so desperate for negotiations.
You know what? Russians, they are lying a lot, and what they're trying to do, you know? They're trying to manipulate with the facts, and they manipulate with the facts, and you know what? Putin and Lavrov, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, they speaking like this. We will go to the negotiations, and we can sit and we can speak about Ukraine. But in the case, if Ukraine will recognize new territorial reality, what does it mean?
There's one territorial reality in Ukraine. I just have to say it right now.
Yes.
1991 borders.
Yes.
Complete deoccupation.
Yeah.
And ultimately the international recognized boundaries. That's what we're fighting
and
for.
And withdrawing Russian forces.
And yeah, of course, complete deoccupation. They can either be killed on the battlefield or they can leave. If they leave, I'll wave goodbye.
Yeah.
But if they want to die on the battlefield, either way, we're getting the internationally recognized borders back from 1991.
Yeah.
That means Crimea. Crimea
Exactly.
is Ukraine.
Yeah, definitely.
So yes.
So and that's
Sorry,
why,
it gets me angry.
And that's the main condition. They are talking. We don't have any conditions. How do you have condition? You have legal annexation of Ukrainian territory from the beginning, from the 2014, from the Crimea. Now you are you are occupied and want to annex Ukrainian territory. Even they are not controlling them. You know, they don't control Kherson, they don't control Zaporizhia, and
They-
they want
even
just...
in the temporarily occupied cities,
Yes.
For instance, in Melitopol, 17 Russian officers and soldiers were poisoned, multiple ones died.
Yeah.
The resistance in places like
Resistance,
Melitopol, Berdyansk, Mariupol, across the entire front. In Donetsk city, the resistance is unstoppable. It's leading the way. In Crimea, the brave Crimean resistance. And yet they want to pretend to have elections and that this land belongs to them. It's literally psychotic.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's why here in Ukraine we have President Zelensky peace plan that consists from 10 points, and they are fair. That's fair
Very
points,
fair, very fair
because
points.
that's according to the UN Charter, that's according to the international law, and that's because of the principle of the Western principle that we wants to live in the future. And from what points this plan consists? First of all, as you mentioned, territorial integrity of Ukraine, sovereignty, our independence, our border, according to the international law 1991, and withdrawing Russian forces from our territory. And that could be a deal. That could be a plan. That's a fair plan.
I think that's the time to talk. Nobody wants this war to go on longer.
Yeah.
We don't hate the Russian people. We hate Ruski Mir.
Yeah.
I hate Ruski Mir. I don't even hate the soldiers that are across from us, because ultimately if they're being willing to die, I will happily take part in their death, but ultimately then they're being genocided by Putin himself. So what's fair is leave, get out of here or die, and then we talk.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
It's pretty simple. Yes, it's very simple. So we are speaking about this, and that conference that used to be in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, that was very important because of this, because Ukraine insists on this peace plan, and we saw the different countries were there, and from United States, from Europe, and from China, also from different Asian countries, and so on. So we spoke about this, we told, and that was very important, because you know, when you can see different Western media, I can see this, that, for example, Foreign Affairs from July-August this year, you know that they have a coverage of the Ukrainian flag and with Ukrainian tank and different articles there about ceasefire also. You know, what I mean because of this? I mean that some media, they continue writing about this, about different compromises. So that's very important for Ukraine to show our plan, and just to stop. You can ask Ukrainians what they want, not just to write plans for us. Probably you will ask what we want. Yes, and then we will talk about next stage, how we can achieve this together, and what we need to achieve this together. So that's the point, and that's very important. So
No negotiations without Ukraine and the people of Ukraine deciding as to what's best for them.
Yes,
Pretty simple.
Exactly.
What's the power? Where does the power of the Ukrainian constitution come from? I think you know.
Power from Ukrainian constitution.
So the Ukrainian constitution says that there's only one power behind the constitution.
People.
Yes, of course you knew it. Of course, the
People.
people are the power of Ukraine behind the
Yes.
Ukrainian constitution, and
Yes.
everything that is Ukraine are the Ukrainian people.
And you saw this on different experience. We have Revolution of Dignity in 2014. We had Orange Revolution in 2004. We also have different, protests here. That's because of our democracies, and that's also because we are different with Russians. Again, that show how we're different. Do you remember something like we had Maidan or something like this, protests in Russia?
No, never.
Even when you are going alone somewhere, police will arrest you.
I'll do one better. Even when Yeltsin tried to stand up to the communists and tried to stand up to the coup makers, even then the people weren't on the streets. It was military versus military, military versus government. It wasn't coming from the people. Why? Because most of the Russian people are enslaved. And those who aren't enslaved are in prison or unfortunately dead or in exile. So ultimately, Russia is a nation of slaves, led by a slave master who's psychotic, Vlad Putin, and surrounded by a bunch of people who are indentured servants. Lavrov, you talked about, Peskov, you talked about Shoigu. All of those people, they don't have real power. All the power comes from, come in. We're live. Do you want to come on? We're live right here. Another one of my colleagues, you should see how he's blushing. Come in here. Let them see how you're dressed. The camera's here. Come on, pull up a chair. Look at this guy, ZSU, right here. This is Andy. We call him Andy ZSU. Look at this. He speaks very good English.
Sure, thank you. What should I say?
Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
Heroem Slava.
And thanks all US
there you have it.
colleagues for helping us killing Russians.
There you have it. We were just talking about killing Russians earlier, so there you go.
Like Cossacks were doing around 400 years ago.
So the Cossacks were predating Ukraine, of course, in killing Russians, and now Ukrainians are doing what the Cossacks were doing 400 years ago.
Absolutely.
History lesson from Andy ZSU.
Yes, that's
amazing.
Wonderful.
And look, this is live. This is what they don't have in Russia. This would never be allowed.
Yeah. And this couldn't be allowed.
So
even the dress like
even.
He's short. Yes, like yes.
We're talking about how you're dressed, and that wouldn't be allowed in Russia. Nothing. We were saying it wouldn't be allowed in Russia.
True Seattle grunge.
Seattle grunge. We have the second.
I used to live in Seattle for almost 2 years.
Did Victoria Nuland send you here? Did the State Department send you here right now to check on our show?
No.
Did CIA send you here? Or
no, I don't know who created me. I came from Biolabs. Thank you, Andy Zesu.
With the birds.
With the birds, I came out, exactly. Yeah. So we know that there's no true freedom in Russia. Mm-hmm. They couldn't have anything that the revolutions that Ukraine has experienced in democracy. These fake elections coming up, we know they're not going to be true. Russia's cracking down more and more on the people within the occupied territories. Tell us some of the horror that the people in the occupied territories are going through right now.
Yes.
Temporarily occupied territories.
Yeah, temporarily occupied. You know that Russians tried to provide repression there. And they had some jails there, like in the KGB practice or in KVD practice. And what they're trying, they think that all people here on the occupied territory, they are like enemies. Because they know that because of the resistance.
Because they are enemies, because nobody wants Russia there. This is the truth.
Yes.
No one supports Russia in the occupied territories. No one. They sometimes will say they do. The only ones that support Russia are collaborators who are on the payroll.
Yeah.
No one else.
And they're trying to conscript people.
Yes.
Conscript men from...
martial law already exists, so they are taking them to the army.
Yeah. They're trying to take them into the army and so on. So that's a very hard situation. And I
it's
think...
devastating.
And I'm we're very disappointed about this because, that's always very hard issue when you deoccupy your territories, former occupied territories, and then you can see the consequences of the occupation. Yes, you can see what's happened because of this. You can see that killed people, killed ordinary civilian people, and that's a very...
When Balaklia, it's terrible, and I'm sorry to talk over you. When Balaklia was deoccupied, one of the villages that was right outside Balaklia, I was speaking to a woman. We arrived, all of us, the governor was there, actually Deputy Defense Minister Maller was there. This was in September. And I'm speaking to this woman, and she said that they would come out and they would announce on a loudspeaker, curfew today is 1400. Any business that these people wanted to do, food, getting into their garden, if not 2 p.m., 1400, you had to be in the house. This is insane. This is what people under occupation go through, plus torture, pulling out of fingernails, beating people, locking them up in these cellar prisons that you were talking about that are not even worse than the KGB. NKVD, which was the precursor or the organization before the KGB. When can we save these people? When can we free them? How long is it going to take? Talk to us about what's happening in some of the areas where we're having success.
You know that I can prognose. I can make a prognosis when it will be happen, and I'm not sure, but I'm sure that it will happen, and I'm confident.
I'm
that
sure
it will
and
be.
confident it's going to happen too.
I'm confident, yes.
Yes.
I'm confident because of this, and I'm confident that we will liberate these people because they are waiting for liberation.
And we're coming for them. No one gets left behind.
Yeah.
We're liberating everyone.
Yes, we're liberating them, and that's very important. That's the first point. The second point, of course, that depends from the situation with our counteroffensive. Yes, that's not so simple as somebody thinks right now, because Russians, they continue to protect themselves, they continue to protect their defense line, and you know that now it's very hard battles on the south, especially on the south, and on the east the same. So we will see. I can say that we have some partial success on the Berdyansk direction and Melitopol direction. We continue to move forward. We are trying to do all the best, but of course we have some problems because of the mines, because of the Russians, and because of the Russians' defense line.
As they're retreating, because the Russians are retreating, but they're dropping mines as they go as well.
Yeah.
Booby traps and mines and reinforced concrete in some of these other areas, such as east. We were talking about south, but east in Klishivka and these other areas, they are attempting to put up stronger fortifications after they've left certain areas.
Yeah.
Something that, and we're going to end this momentarily, we're coming up on almost an hour.
Yeah.
Natalia Humanyuk, who is an official spokesperson for ZSU, she talked about our attacks on Crimea, specifically Sevastopol, last night. Talking about how this makes sense in the bigger picture of what President Zelensky has promised, which is that we are taking actionable steps to return Crimea to Ukrainian governance. Because Crimea is Ukraine, but we are not able to govern there at the moment. However, we're able to attack the Russian occupiers there. Will Crimea be recognizable to the people of Ukraine after we return and step foot there? What have the Russians done to Crimea in the last 10 years? What are we expecting there once we return?
I think that first of all, I think that it will be a hard procedure. We need to fight with all these consequences of Russian occupation during this 10 years. Yes, but I think that a lot of people, they are waiting that Ukraine will come, and Ukraine will come and liberate them.
This is how much love people have for freedom. They've been waiting 10 years.
They are waiting for freedom. They are waiting for their ordinary life. They are waiting not militarization of the peninsula. They are waiting, the development for the business, for culture. You know that Crimea has a very good location because near the sea, with the beautiful nature, with the mountains and so on. So I think that people waiting something like this, and of course I expect, from my point of view, that Russians could protect Sevastopol till the end. It seems to me, even more than Moscow, because in Russians history, in Russians' mind, that Sevastopol, that means a lot. Even more than Moscow. They can lost Moscow. Do you remember that when Napoleon was near the Moscow, Russians just blew up. Russians just fired Moscow and so on.
Scorched earth theory we talk
Yes.
about. We talk about that they would rather destroy things
Yes.
than give them up.
Yes. So, but we will try all the best to liberate the Sevastopol also. But I expect that it will be not so simple because Russians will try to protect. But I expect that our sea drones will do all the best just to destroy Russians' naval ships and also help for the occupation. And also we need to, I expect that we will have additional assistance from our partners with long-range missiles that also will help us to liberate Sevastopol. And you want to show the
I want to
picture
show the
from the Crimean War?
That's exactly what I'm showing. He knew. He knew. I'm smiling because I thought I was going to surprise him, but he knew what I was looking for. And again, this is not scripted, but Russia got routed, destroyed by international coalition in the mid-1850s, including some of the partners we have today. The Brits were leading the way on that.
Very good experience. Maybe our Western partners will think about this. That in the international coalition, it will be better, it will be simple to liberate Sevastopol. That's a very good example.
169 years from the last liberation of Sevastopol, that was 1855, I will make the guarantee that in 2024, Sevastopol, all of Crimea, and all of Ukraine will be under the governance of Ukraine.
Perfect.
And the people of Ukraine.
Perfect.
We're live, so I'm going to ask one of my colleagues who are behind the camera to come over and press the off button on this camera.
Yeah. We will finish.
You can speak Ukrainian.
Yes,
It's okay.
yes. Нажміть кнопку, будь ласка, хтось просто лайв закінчити.
This is Sergeant Sarah Ashton Cirillo of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. This is Олександр Мусієнко. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!